Hi everyone. Today video is on Angular 14 Crud example. So basically Angular is a framework that can be used to build single page applications. Single page applications means page will not be refreshed, but it will navigate it to different pages without loading the entire page. Okay. So Angular is made up of components. So component contains three files like a TS file, which is TypeScript file. So TS is a advanced way of writing JavaScript code. Okay, so TS and HTML and CSS file. So combining three files makes Angular component. Okay, so in these components, data communication is two-way. It supports two-way, means from HTML file to TypeScript file. We can communicate, our data can be transferred. Okay, and it also supports events, means clicks or mouse over any kind of JavaScript. Events can be invoked. On raising event, the method exists in the component gets executed. So the logic inside of it gets executed. Okay. So that's about the small intro on Angular component. So first let's jump into creating the Angular project. To create an Angular project in our local machine, our machine should contain Angular CLI. So for installing Angular CLI globally into our local machine, please run this command npm install -z -z represents global. Okay, at the rate Angular CLI. So okay, after installing CLI, for creating the Angular project, create any folder and inside of that folder open terminal and in on the terminal enter the command like ng space new space name of your project and then click on enter, and it will ask for to add Angular routing or not. Please click yes, means we are choosing to create route file. Okay, click Y. Okay, it will create route file. And here I am going to use CSS. Project created successfully. Let's open the project in Visual Studio Code Editor. Okay, here is our Angular project and let's explore few of the existing files. Okay, first go to package.json. So in this package.json, we are going to have commands to run our project or build our project or test our project, and also the packages that are going to be downloaded while we build our project. Okay, and also so dependencies means directly involved in our Angular application. Dev dependency means uh, those are the scripts that required for the at the development mode. Okay, so like that all the configurations will be available in the package.json file. Next file we have to uh, understand, that is Angular JSON file. So this contains all the build process and how to take the paths. All the Angular related configurations will be configured in this Angular.json file. Okay. And then next in the src folder, we will have one and only one index page. So I have mentioned, right, Angular is a single page application. So this is the HTML page that's going to render for the user on requesting the Angular application. Okay, internally all the pages will be rendered based on the Angular routing. Okay, and the next file main.ts file. So this is the TypeScript and it is the entry file for starting up the Angular application. Okay, here you can observe bootstrap.app module. So app module is the main module in Angular application. So it is loading the app module. So main.ts file is like a entry file for us. Okay, in the app folder you can see app module and app component and app routing. So these are the default files we are going to get while creating the project. Okay, so that's about the files we have to understand before starting with our application. Okay, and next, for to complete the CRUD operation like create, read, delete, update operation in Angular application, Angular definitely depends upon the API call. API call is nothing but the server call. So for that, what I am going to do, I am going to create a fake API server. Okay. So that is nothing but a JSON server. Okay. So to configure that, I'm going to show how to configure it as well. Such like JSON server. Okay. And go to the GitHub link. So first thing we have to do, we have to install the JSON server locally into your system, globally into your system. Okay. For that, just you need to run this command. Okay. So open terminal anywhere, directly open the terminal and run this command. So JSON server will be installed into your local machine. Once that is done, uh, to run JSON server, this is the command JSON-server -watch db.json. So once you run this command, JSON server will be up and running. Okay, so copy this command. So what I will do, I am going to run within my Angular application. Okay. So here paste the uh, JSON server command and run it. Or else if you want to create a command in package.json, that's also we can do. So let's do like that package.json. What I will do, I will add a new command for my JSON server. Okay. So JSON server. Okay. So if I run this command, internally this command gets executed and JSON server will be up. So let me run the JSON server. So to run this command, npm run JSON-server. Okay. Okay, what it will do when you run first time, it will create a db.json file if it is doesn't exist already. So if you scroll, here you can see db.json. So here it will store the data and that data will be served as a API response. Okay. So what I will do, I will just create my own response. I'm going to remove all these. So in my sample, I'm going to display fruits. Okay. And array. So my JSON will be like mango and quantity to and price 100. Okay. So now if you check again, it's get refreshed. Okay, and here you can see it's generated a one endpoint based on the root property name. It will generate the endpoint. So once if you copy and run it on the browser, see my API is ready. Like that, you can set up the local fake server for the beginners to learn the Angular application. Okay, we are done with setting up the fake JSON server. Now let's install the bootstrap. Okay, so here open one more terminal. Okay, here I am going to use Angular command. So npm install bootstrap. Okay, run the command. Okay, bootstrap installed successfully. To confirm that, you can check in the dependencies. So here is bootstrap added. Okay. Now we have to add bootstrap JS and CSS files into the angular.json file. So go to angular.json file. Okay. Here in the styles, let's add the reference of the Angular CSS file. Okay. List slash CSS slash and select the min file bootstrap min.cs. Okay. Similarly, you can add JS file as well. Okay. So copy this list /js / bootstrap min.js file we have to configure. Okay, so that's the required configuration for the bootstrap. First, let's run our Angular application and check how it looks. Okay, so to run the Angular application, this is the command we have to run. Okay, ng serve, it will start the application. Okay, for that, you can directly type ng serve or you can use npm run space start. Okay, I'm directly using ng serve. Okay, here you can see our Angular application runs at localhost 4200. So let me open localhost 4200. Okay, this is our default HTML loads in our Angular application. Now what I will do, I am going to remove this and I am going to add the Bootstrap menu. Okay, for that go to Bootstrap website. So from the Bootstrap website, let's pick the menu. So I think in the components, we'll have navbar. Okay, copy this menu. Okay, and go to app component.html file. Okay, so here is the default. Okay, let's remove this and add it here. Okay, and in this also, I don't want everything. So let me remove. Okay, I will name my heading like fruit basket. Okay, I want navbar dark and background color orange. Okay, so this is my navbar. Okay, and here you can see router outlet, right? So this is the area where components based on navigation, those component HTML gets rendered. Okay, so this is the default component for rendering the routed component. Okay, now let's reload our page. See, have got nice orange color menu. So by default we have app module, right? So what I will do, my target is I want to fetch the fruits API records and I want to save the fruits to the API and I want to update it and I want to delete it. So for that what I will do, I will create a separate module. Okay, so just I am separating to maintain my code more cleaner way. So what generally we have to do, we have to create the separate modules. Inside the modules we will have set of components. Okay, so one kind of business logic can be goes under one module. Okay, so first let's generate a new module like fruits. Okay, so for that I can use simple command. So let's create one more terminal. So the command is like ng generate. Okay, I want to generate modules, right? So module. Okay, these are all CLI commands where we can generate the files very easily. Okay, module, and I will name my module name like fruits. Okay, I want along with my fruit module, I want a individual fruit routing module as well. So for that, I have to add flag like routing. So what it will do along with the fruit module, it will create fruit routing module as well. Okay, let's run the command. And here you can see fruits folder is created for fruit module, and you can see the module. Okay, so this is our fruit module, and you can see the fruit routing module as well. And this module is automatically imported into the fruits route module. Okay, and this module, fruits module, will be automatically imported into the, sorry, it won't automatically import. We have to import into our app module. Okay, so for that, let's import it. our fruit module into the app module. Okay, app module will be the parent of all other modules. That's why all child modules must be registered here. So fruit module, okay, so it will automatically import the namespace as well. Now I want to create couple of components inside of the fruits. Okay, in that process, the first component I want to create is home component. So in that home component, I am going to display a table. In the table, I'm going to display all the data from my API as a response. Okay, let's run command for creating the uh, home component inside of the fruit module. For that, ng generate. Okay, so now I want to create component, right? Component space where I want to create inside of the fruits. So that fruits, this is the folder path fruits and name of my component home. Okay, so let's run this command. So component created successfully. If I navigate to fruits module, inside of fruits module, I have now home subfolder. Inside of that, I have all component files. We have mentioned, right? Component means CS plus HTML plus CSS is combinedly creates a Angular component. Okay, so like this component is created and it is automatically imported into the declarations of the home component. Sorry, declarations of the fruit module. Our home component is automatically added here. Now let's define the route for our home component. Okay, to define route for home component, in fruit module we have separate fruit routing module, right? So go to fruit routing module. So here is the empty route. In this array we can register our component routes. So here what I will do, I have to specify path for my route. So fruits slash home. Okay, and then component, which component load for this route. I want to load home component. Okay, and by default when you run Angular application, it is just loads localhost 4200 or your domain or real domain, right? Slash fruits slash home, it won't automatically redirect. For that redirect, to redirect it automatically, what you have to do means we have to go to main routing component, that is app routing module. Here we have to define a redirect. Okay, path empty means home, means direct localhost. Okay, there is nothing path, right? So that represents this empty path. So redirect to our fruit home component, right? So I will give fruit home and path match must be full. Okay. Now here you can see automatically it's reloaded to it is loading home works. Home works means this content is from the home component. If I go to home component.html file, there is name of the component and it will show some text like work. So if I try to call localhost 4200, it will automatically redirect to fruit slash home. That is because we are redirecting manually here. Okay, so that is the configuration we require. Now let's create a service file for our component, sorry, our fruit module. So service file is a file where we are going to write logic for API calls. Okay, so inside of the fruits module, I want to create a service file to implement my API logic. Okay, so for that, ng generate. I want to create service, right? So service under which folder? Fruits folder. And what is the name of my file? I want to name it fruits only. Okay, now run it. Okay, now if I go to my fruits module, here you can see fruit service file is created. Okay, So services are decorated with the injectable decorator because these files can be injected in the components constructor very easily. Means we no need to bother about the creation of the object for this fruit service. Okay, so this makes our file injectable very easily. So first thing here we have to inject into this service constructor is HTTP client. Okay, so I will create a variable like HTTP and its of type HTTP client. Okay, so import the HTTP client from @angular/common/HTTP. Okay, from this load the HTTP client. Okay, HTTP client. So to use the HTTP client, we have to register the HTTP module. So go to app module. Here we have to register the HTTP client module. Okay, so HTTP client module. Okay, that loads from the angular.common.htp. Here is the namespace. We have API like this, right? Fruits API. So let's create a model for this response. Okay, so to create a model for that response, I am going to create an interface. So for that command is like ng generate interface. I want to create it inside of the fruits folder, right? So specify the path and my response model name is fruits. Okay, if I see here, fruits.ts file is created. So let's go and load the fruits.ts file. And to this model, let's add properties of my response. Okay, so see them number. I want to define the types of the properties. Okay, no need to give the quotes also. Okay, this is my API response model. Now let's try to implement the read operation. Read operation means we are trying to fetch the API response and we are going to render it on the bootstrap table. Okay. So to invoke the API, first we have to create a method in the fruit service. Go to fruit service and create a get method to load all the data from the API. Okay. So to get all the data from the JSON server, here it will give show how to get the data. So like this to get slash post. Since our is fruits, right? To get all the data, simply if we call this URL is enough. Okay. So get in the get method written using HTTP, we will have defined methods that are get. Get means it will invoke the HTTP get request. So to this get request, I am going to pass this URL. Okay. And I am expecting array of fruits as a response so that I can define the type here. Okay. So that's my method for getting the API. Okay. Now go to home controller. I want to invoke that API call in my home controller. For that, what I have to do, I will create a variable first, all fruits. Okay. So in this variable, I am going to store my API response. Okay. Initially, it will be empty. Okay. Now let me create a method. Okay. Get and in the constructor, let me inject my service. I have mentioned right at the rate injectable decorator contains a class means that object can be directly injected into the constructor. So what I will do private fruit service, okay, service. Now I can use this dot fruit service dot get. Okay, so get is a observable. So to listen the response, we can use subscribe method. So subscribe is once the API call is done, this method get executed. Okay. So to this method, I can read all the data and I can simply assign the data to my all fruits variable. Okay. So this method need to be get executed once the component is loaded. So to do that, we have a method that is ngOnIt. So ngOnIt is a lifecycle method of the Angular component which gets executed one time on component rendering. Okay. So this dot get I will call here. Okay, that's it. Our TS file logic is done. Now in our HTML file, go to HTML file. Here I want to load the bootstrap table. First, let me create a container div. Okay. So inside of this container div, I want to load the table. So go to bootstrap and I think in the contents, go to tables. Okay. Copy the HTML. Okay. I have ID, name. So these are my table column headers. Quantity and the price. And here I can get rid of these static TRs. I have array of uh, fruits, right? So I want to loop them over the HTML. To loop it over the HTML, I am going to use this TR to loop. So for that, what I can do, I can use ngFor. ngFor is to loop the array of object. Okay, to do that, let item create a local variable for this template of. So what is my component variable? All fruits, right? Copy that. So what it will do, ngFor, it will pops up each item from the object and store it inside of this variable and loop over like this. Okay. So to bind Angular data, we can use string interpolation. Okay. String interpolation is nothing but open two braces and pass the Angular variable ID. So this gets rendered HTML. So to render the data into the HTML, we can use string interpolation. So the syntax is open the two flower braces. Like this, I can bind all my data dynamically. So item dot name, item dot quantity, item dot price. Okay. So if I check in my Angular website, now I have to see the data gets rendered to the bootstrap table. So let's go. See, my data is rendered. If I inspect, okay, go to networks tab and I check on fetch slash XHR. If I reload again, here you can see API call. So this API call is nothing but our get API request. And here it is getting the response. Okay. And that response is binded to our UI. Okay. We are successfully done with the read operation. Now let's do create operation for adding some records to the server, new records to the server. Okay. So creating, deleting, updating, all the operations are supported by the or fake JSON response. So the routes will be like this. Okay, if you want to post, same URL for post, but if you want to update, you have to specify the ID value here. If you want to delete, you have to specify the ID value here. Okay, to create a new item, let's create one more component inside of our fruit module like create component. So command is like ng generate. I want to create component, right? Component. Where I want to create? I want to create inside of the fruits. And what is my component name? Create. Okay, let's run it. Okay, create component is successfully created. Let's go and check. Inside of the fruits, now we have two components. One is home component and another one is create component. So in this create component, I am going to create a small form where user can enter data to create the new item. Okay, let's uh, add the route of our create component in the fruit route module. Okay, here let me configure my create component as well. For that, let's create one more object, path, and my path will be fruits slash create. For this path, I want to load component like create component. Now let's go to fruit service. So now let's first create the API for saving the new record to the API. Okay. For that, let me add a method like create, and it should have input parameter user payload, means user entered form data. So payload, and its type will be my fruit only. Okay. Now what I can do, return. For getting, we have to, for get API, we used HTTP get, right? But to create new records, we have to use HTTP post. Okay. And post will give the new record. And post also same URL I can use. Okay. Same fruits, but one more additional parameter, payload, I need to pass. Okay. This is my post API call method. Go to create component.ts file. First, let me create a variable like fruit form. So this variable data I am going to use for binding to my form a two-way. When the user enters data, that data will be stored into this variable, or any data assigned to this variable gets rendered on the HTML. Okay, two-way binding. So initially for creating record ID, I can ignore it, can be 0. Name, price 0 initially, quantity also 0. Okay, so this is my variable. Now what I will do, go to the create component HTML. Okay, so here let's add container div, and first add a legend for heading for my form, creating item. Okay, here let me add a simple form. For that, go to bootstrap and forms, go to forms. Okay, copy this and paste it over here. I don't want all these. I want just delete this as well. Okay, I want this div. I want to create 3 fields, one for name, quantity, and price. Okay. Okay. Now first will be for name, and its type will be text. Okay. And this for item will I can use for ID, and label will be simply name, fruit name. Okay. Next is for text field for quantity. Okay, assign it to the ID property. Okay, and the type will be number because quantity is number, right? And here it will be quantity. Okay, same way, text price, and it will be a number, and it will be price. And one more attribute we have to compulsory add, that is name attribute for the each input element. If you don't specify name, Angular model binding or two-way binding won't work. Okay, so let me add name attribute for every field. Okay, name. So this is name only, right? So I will give name itself, like fruit name. Okay, fruit name, a name, quantity, anything you can give, but name should be given here and it should be unique as well. And price. Okay, and now to this form, I want to enable two-way model binding, right? For that, I can use, so open square brackets, inside of it, open circular brackets. There I can call ng model. Okay, this enables two-way binding. And to this, so for this field, I want to store inside of this fruits form dot name property. Okay, like that we have to bind. Okay, fruit form dot name. Okay, so we are storing this input field value into this name variable in the fruit form variable. Okay, so but here we are getting one error, that is ng model is not identified. That is because we have to import form module in the fruits module. Okay, inside of the fruit module, let's import form module. Okay, imported. So it loads from Angular / forms. Now if I go to HTML, now error is gone. Like that, each property should be binded to each text field. Okay, this will be a quantity and here it will be the price. Okay, now whatever data user enters, it will automatically stored into this object, fruit form object. Okay, next, on submitting, okay, button on the form, we have to invoke the API call. For that, don't use submit, because submit will reload the page, because it will post entire data. So what I will do, I will use simply type and I will register a click event. To register any event, you have to open braces, circular braces. Inside of it, you have to specify the name of your event. So my event is click, right? I can specify like this. And to this event, I have to register a method inside of my component. So let me create a method for creating the record item to the API. Okay. So I will create a method like create. Okay. To call API call, we have to inject the our fruit service. So fruit service. Okay. Now what I can do, this dot fruit service dot create, and to this create I can pass my payload, that is fruit form. Okay, and subscribe. So after completion of successful save, here what I will do, here open and I can define next, so it will give the data. So once the record is created, I want to navigate back to my home component. So to navigate back to home component, we have to use Angular router. So let's inject Angular router. Okay. So Angular router loads from the namespace at the rate Angular / router. Okay. So on successful, in the next method, what I will do, I'm going to navigate this dot router. So I will select router. Okay. Router dot navigate. Okay. Here I can open a array and I can specify the my path fruits / home. So once my API is successful, I want to navigate back to my home page. So my home page will display the newly created record. Okay. If at all an error occurs, I simply log console for now. Console dot log. Okay. So that's my create method. Let's register that create method with my click event. Okay, go to component and create. Okay, I think we are done with the logic. Okay. Now we have to add a button. So on clicking that button, we should navigate to this create component, right? So we are going to add a add button in home, home page, home component. So go to home component. Okay. So here inside of the container, let's create a row. Let's use some padding, top margin top. Okay. And let's create call MD4 call offset. I want to display my button in the middle on the top of the table. Okay. Now I will add a anchor tag, create item, but I want to display this anchor tag as a button so that I can add button classes button primary. And to navigate, I can use Angular attribute like router link. Since I can give directly path. There is no dynamic value in my routes, right? So I can directly give like this, like routes slash create. Okay. So on clicking this, I am going to navigate to the create component. Okay, let's check it. Okay, here you can see my create button. If I click here, see fruits.create and my navigation is done. But page is not reloaded if you observe. That is the beauty of single page application. Now let's enter some data and try to save it. Open inspect element. Okay, let's check API call as well. Okay, I'm going to add apples. I'm going to add 5 apples and rupees 120. Okay, click on submit. See, immediately I navigated back to my home page and here you can see apple newly created record is in my API response. If you observe the first API call, that is nothing but the post method. Post means save. So payload we are passing apple and price or form data is posted. And in the get request, we can see the response or apple also coming means our record is successfully saved to the server. Okay. And if you observe our db.json file, new record is added. Like this, it will save as a dummy server. Okay. So we are done with our create operation as well. Now let's concentrate on edit operation. So for editing, we are going to create one more component like edit component. So first create the edit component. So command is like ng generate component under the fruits folder. Component name is edit. Okay, component is created. Let's go and check. Okay, now my fruit module contains 3 components. One is home, another one is create, and another one is edit. So now let's first configure the edit component route as well. So in the fruits routing module, okay, here path, but I want to pass some dynamic value in the my route as well. That value is nothing but ID of my item that I want to edit. So to define the dynamic route inside of the route, we can use like root slash edit. Up to here, it is normal string. Now I want a ID in the path. For that, I can specify like colon ID. So this value should be dynamic. Anything. Then I want to load component, edit component. Why I am passing ID means Once the edit form loaded, I want to display the item, right? Item I want to edit. So this ID value I am going to use to fetch the item by ID. Okay. So for that, first let's create a API call. Okay. So in the fruit service, let me create a get API call, but I want get single record by ID. So get by ID, a new method. Okay. ID will be the input parameter. Okay. Return. So this is also get, right? So I will use HTTP get, and it will return single object, single fruit. Okay. And here instead of double quotes, use backticks because I'm going to specify some dynamic value in the route. Okay. So backtick, copy this entire. Okay. And once go to JSON documentation. And if you want to get any item, particular item, slash the ID value should be passed. Okay. So that means here I need to pass the ID value. Means I want to pass this route value. So to pass the dynamic value, add dollar and flower braces and specify the add. So it will be dynamically generate the URL. But you cannot use this dollar and brackets in normal double quotations. You should use backticks. Okay. So now I am ready with my API call. Go to fruits edit component, fruit service, fruit, sorry, edit component. Okay. So most of the logic in the edit component is similar to the create component. So let's open create component as well. What I will do, I will add this variable, fruit form variable. Okay. Import the namespace. Okay. And in our constructor, we have to inject the service private fruit service. Fruit service. Need to inject the service. Okay. Let's create the get by ID API call method. Okay. Get by ID. Okay, it should contain ID value. ID value that will be the number. Okay, here I can use fruit service and invoke the API call. This dot fruit service dot get by ID, and to that ID I will pass, and I need to subscribe it. Once I got data, I can directly assign that data to my fruit form because the type of the response is fruits only, right? So I can directly assign. So this dot fruit form equal to data. So this should be executed inside of the ng on it, but I need ID, right? So how can I get ID value from the route? So I need to read the value from the route. So to read the value from the route, we have to inject one more service, that is private route activated route. Okay. So from this I can read this dot route dot param map dot subscribe. Okay. So it is also observable param. Okay, where id equal to number I am converting because by default all the params will be string only. So param dot get, and we have to specify the route dynamic value we specified in the route. What I have specified column id, right? I need to pass this. Okay, so it will get the value and convert as number. Now here I can invoke my get by id method so that whenever the edit component loaded, it will read the ID from the route and it will invoke the get by ID API call. And finally, it will fill up the form data by mapping these values. Okay. And form, I can use exact form that we used for create component. So copy the HTML from create component. Okay. And paste it over here where edit HTML. Okay. but change the form name like edit item, and remaining all the model binding, everything I leave as it is. For now, let me remove the update method. Okay. Now let's test it. Before testing, we have to open edit component, right? That means we need to navigate to edit component. For navigate into edit component in the HTML home component HTML, let's create one more column. Okay, that like actions, new TD, and here let me add a anchor tag like edit, and but I want to display like a button. So add button classes. Okay, and here I can use router link, but here I cannot use router link directly here because my uh, route value should contain some dynamic value, right? If I go to my here, I have some dynamic value, right? That is ID. So I cannot use router link directly like that. But what we have to do, router link in the home component.html. Router link must be enclosed with the braces, means it has some dynamic value to add. Okay, and open brackets, and first parameter of the array is my route, normal route. Okay, fruits means let me copy from my fruit route component up to here, copy, and home. Okay, my first value will be the normal route, comma, my dynamic value. My dynamic value is item.id. Okay, so finally what it will generate means href equal to fruits slash edit slash 1. Okay, or 2 id value will be rendered. Okay, now test it. See, we got edit button, and here you can see, if you inspect it, see it's render like fruit slash home, fruit slash home. A path is attaching, that is not correct path. Sorry, it should be prefixed. Okay, now if I reload again, okay, if I inspect, now see, slash fruit slash edit slash 1. If I inspect second, fruit slash edit slash 2. Okay, like that, we are seeing the data. Now if I click on the button, see, my form is automatically populated. Okay, it invoke, see, it is invoking API call here. So if I go to header slash fruit slash 2, and it's getting single object as a response. Okay, whatever item I edit, that item will be edited here. Okay. Now on clicking submit, I want to update it on the server, right? So for that, we have to create a update method in our edit component, update. But we haven't created API call in our fruit service, right? So first let's create the update API call. Okay, fruit service update. Okay, and it should contain payload, that is nothing but my fruits. Okay, so to update I can use return http dot put. Okay, to this put we have to pass ID as well in the URL. You can check the JSON server documentation while updating API. So these values depends upon the way they implement uh, their URL. Some people may implement different way, but this is like standard way of implementing. Okay, so it should be backticks. and ID value I can get from the payload.id. And next I need to pass payload also, okay, to update it. So this is my API call I want to invoke from my edit component. So in the update method, fruit service dot update, to that fruit service I am going to pass this dot my fruit form data subscribe. So on successfully update, I want to navigate back to my home component. So here I can use the next. So we know right how to navigate to home component. We have to inject router service. Okay, private router. Okay, router service, and using that router service, this dot router dot navigate. Okay, and open array and fruits slash home. Now also add error and console log it. Okay, that's it. And we have to register this with our update button in the HTML. Okay, here change it to update and register the click event with update method. Okay, and is that capital? No, small update. Okay, now check. See, now I want to edit this apple count quantity to 7 and increase price to 150. Okay, so 7 and I am changing the price. Okay, if I click update, see update call invoked and my payload is passed, and see data is updated. Here I am seeing my newly updated record. So that's it. We are done with the update operation as well. Now finally, delete operation, which is our final operation. Let's implement the delete operation. So for implementing delete operation, first let's go to no need to create any component. I will just show a confirmation bootstrap pop-up whether to delete or not. And within the home page, we are going to handle the delete operation. But we need to create the API call. So go to fruit service. Okay. So here create a method like delete, and it should contain which item I want to delete. That ID value should be passed here. Okay. ID number. Okay. And copy this method get method, but it should not be get, it should be delete. Okay, and ID will be passed as like this. Okay, I am ready with API call or home component.ts. So I want to load bootstrap and bootstrap instance, right? So first let's add the bootstrap HTML into my home component HTML. So bootstrap model, for loading bootstrap model, go to components and go for models. Okay, copy this model HTML into my HTML component. So what is HTML home component HTML? Here, let's add it. I don't need this additional button, remove it. And here one important thing is ID, because based on this ID only we create the instance of the bootstrap model. So I will name it like delete model. Okay, delete model, and title will be like confirm delete, and content I want to show is like, are you to delete this item? Okay, that is the message. And this I want to show as confirm delete button. I want to show in red color, so I will change like danger and confirm delete button. Okay, Okay, I want to load this model pop-up. To load this model pop-up into our Angular component, go to home component. First, we have to declare the variable window variable. Okay, for that, declare where window, so it can access the all window variable of our DOM window variable. Okay, now here what I can do, I will create a variable like delete model. Okay, so I'm going to store the instance of the bootstrap model to this variable. For that, what I can do, this dot, I'm going delete model. I'm going to use JavaScript code here, window dot bootstrap dot model. Okay, and inside of it, I want to call the document dot get element by ID, and to this ID we have to pass our model pop-up ID. I have added right delete model. So that model I have to pass it here. So now using this variable I can show, I can hide the bootstrap model. Okay. So I have created the instance. Next I will create a method like open delete model, like confirmation pop-up will be opened by executing this method. Okay. So it will contains the item I want to delete. Okay, to store the item we want to delete, let me create one more variable like id to delete. Okay, number, let's give initial value 0. Okay, and this dot id to delete equal to id. Okay, and now I want to open the model. To open the model, this dot delete model dot show. This method going to shows the pop-up. Once the pop-up shows, on clicking confirm button. Here we have confirm button, right? In the bootstrap model I have just created. For this method, let's create the click method. So for that, let me create a method like delete. Okay. So in this method, this dot fruit service dot delete method of fruit service, name it correctly. Okay. And come back to our component, delete, and we have to pass the ID. So ID will be stored in ID item to delete variable. So on successful delete, what I want to do means I simply want to update my array. From this array is rendering in the table, right? Displaying all the data. I want to remove from my table. So for that here, we have to update this all fruits variable like this dot all fruits filter. Okay. ID not equal to this dot item to delete ID. Means I am removing that from the array of objects so that my table gets refreshed. And finally, I want to hide the delete model, so I can hide it. Okay, that's it. Now configure this delete item to confirm delete button. So home component.html here click event, click delete. Okay, and I want to open the pop-up, right? For that here I have to create button. I no need to create anchor tag because I simply want a button. Its type will be a button. Okay, class btn. I want to show it in red color. Delete. Okay, to it click event. I want to register open. I have a component, right? Method open delete model. I want to assign it here. And to this model, I want to pass the item dot id. Okay, that's it. We are done with our changes. Let's check. So here we can observe. So name given wrong. Okay. So here is my delete button. Inspect element. Okay, network calls. If I click on delete, I want to delete this newly created item. See, I got confirmation box. I want to delete or not. If I click on close, nothing will happen. If I click on confirm delete, see, API call for deleting this method has invoked. The request is delete, and item also deleted here. If I refresh also, you won't see that item is permanently deleted. Okay, so that's all about a Crud example in Angular 14. I hope this video has delivered some useful information to you all. If you like my video, please support me by subscribing to my channel. Soon we are going to meet with new videos. Until then, signing off.